Happy Sunday, everybody.
Yeah. Oh.
Welcome to the Weird Things stream.
Look this up on Twitter.
Yeah. You may have noticed a new chat client in our pre-showness.
Totally non-controversial. New chat client, guys. We're all hanging out. Look at us.
Sometimes everybody's on board, and it's not a big deal. You just sort of...
Yeah.
Nothing, nobody has any issue. Everybody sees clearly why, and same page.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, what should people expect in terms of Rogue One spoilers for the show today before we get started?
I don't think we're gonna do Rogue One spoilers. I mean, maybe we'll talk Rogue One next week. But Brian's not here, so we have an excuse to not talk about it.
Coolio. Coolio. Yeah. And I went to the movies last night, but I did not. I did not go see a Rogue One. I went and saw a Harry Potter movie. End of statement. End of thought.
Yeah, I still haven't seen that. I do wanna see that. I'm curious how. I mean, I'm kind of surprised that it did not do better than Doctor Strange. I thought it would definitely do better than Doctor Strange, but
I don't know. Have you seen it? Then you wouldn't be so surprised.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's. I mean, there's just always that. There's always that calculus of just what does a total piece of crap that has Harry Potter music playing under it do, right?
And it's not even it's a matter of you can. There's a difference between I like and it was good and something you love.
Yeah.
In movies, people come out of they like and they love. They tell everybody to go see it.
Yeah.
Movies that you love it. You tell everybody. Like movies, like oh yeah, we saw that. It was cool. The other one's hey, you got to go see this. So, I think that's the cinema scores don't quite quantify that, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I think that we're just in a weird spot with that. But I mean, ultimately, especially when we're looking at movie draft grosses, it's always okay, does it have a premise that will draw people in? Is it something that will get the kind of push from the studio that they want? Does it star a bankable actor that normally does good stuff? And then after all that, it's will it be a good movie? Because it can not have the first couple things and be a good movie and still make $10. But if it has all those things and you think it's going to be good, then it's that's what takes it from, X to Y. Because now its drop off isn't going to be all that big and it might have legs and.
Yeah. I think it would be a good movie for kids, to be honest. Oh, hi. Also, Scotty.
Gambling says hi.
Hi, Gambling Man. I think it would be a good movie for kids. Part of the thing that got me is how basic that story is, in just terms of having a character who is the viewer because they don't know anything, and a character who can be the author's voice because she can read minds. Weird.
Oh, it was basic, all right.
Yeah.
Oh damn! Get your caramel macchiatos. This shit is basic.
You got riled on. All right. Well, you guys want to do a weird show?
Let's do a weird show.
Since we're here.
Since we're here. Since we're weird. Since we're queer. All right. Let's go in three. Let's go in 3, 2.
Welcome to the Weird Things Podcast. I'm Andrew Main, joined with here on the show, Justin Robert Young.
Hi, everybody. What's going on?
And you wondered, how did he screw up that intro? How could he possibly screw that up? It's because not only am I not the center of video here, I've been pushed to the side. We have no idea where Brian is. Yeah. I think Brian did not survive the Diamond Dome. And instead, Mr. Bryce Castillo.
Hi.
How you doing, sir?
The master of Diamond Town is in the house.
I know, as revealed, the shocking reveal last week that he indeed runs Diamond Town. Brian is waylaid by the King of Random this week, right?
Yeah. They got together and they're busting some nuts and lighting some shit on fire. So Yeah.
Wow. Brian's coming out firing, stepping out into the center stage and just.
Well, I got a
It will
call
make
from Brian
sense.
yesterday. He says like, yeah, Rand, we're doing some videos together. It's a little bit different than my style. He cleared the room to go to this different approach, and it sounded like porn. I'm like, this sounds like, this is exactly, what happens when these things get made. And I'm like, hey, just be careful, don't get in your eye.
Exactly. He just starts pulling his belt off. He's like, "What, Brian? Are you not random?" Oh, I thought you
Not
were
random
random. I thought
enough for
that
you?
was. I thought that we were connecting on how random everything was. No,
Disclaimer,
but for real,
like King of Random is a very adult, family-friendly channel, and is not,
no,
as
yeah,
far as we know.
he's absolutely gigantic. And listen, whatever process they got to go through to get the kind of videos that they need to get is something to be happy about. So you'll be able to see everything on the Modern Rogue coming up soon.
These things will be on the King of Random's channel, actually.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Never mind then.
So check them
Yeah.
out over there.
Gentlemen, let's jump right in. It's been a while since we talked about Mr. Elon Musk. And what's
Yeah,
that?
it's been like over a month, I think. It's been a while on Elon Musk news.
We've
I think.
name checked, but we haven't had a story.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, let's go. I feel like I live in a perpetual Elon Musk cocoon, but I want to apologize to our listeners if we have not brought you Elon Musk news in a month. We will rectify it immediately.
Listen, man, it's his simulation. We're all just puppets in it. So I think
Oh,
that should be
seriously.
clear by now. We are in a simulation designed for Elon Musk in which he gets to be king of the world. So when you're Elon Musk, when you're a gazillionaire, you own spaceships, you have electric cars. You literally, like, your sweet ride is made by your car company, and you can design whatever car you want. You have that, you're into different things like, have helped overturn financial transactions. You're getting invited to like big, tech meetups with the president-elect, and also being put on, asked for like economic advice and stuff. You know what? No matter how powerful you are, there's one force that nobody's bigger than. There's one equalizer. There's one thing, and I won't even say death now because, Google and some other billionaires are trying to solve that. No, there's one force that humbles everybody, and that is LA traffic and Bay Area traffic.
Wait a
And
minute.
I don't know if what's that?
Oh yeah. Oh no. Totally. This is the bane of my existence. Especially LA traffic. It just drives me up a wall.
So Elon Musk, trying to bring the future faster, has been driven nuts about this. One of the reasons he came up with the Hyperloop is during these long drives, is he's got to go from he's basically got a compound up in Bel Air, which is near Hollywood, and then when he has to go drive to the SpaceX or the Tesla showroom way south of there, it's a long drive, and so he thinks about things like Hyperloops. Another thing he's been thinking about is it's like, look at this traffic, and Elon's got some ideas, and Elon has said that he's going to start a new company to solve this. Here's the tweet.
His tweet
Wanna
says,
read it?
"Yeah, traffic is driving me nuts. I'm going to build a tunnel boring machine and just start digging. .. A little while later, he tweeted, "I'm actually going to do this." And is he actually going to do this? He doesn't lie.
Can I just before we get into the micro here? Can it just understand the macro that when Twitter started, I think even Andrew and I remember when Twitter first started, and Andrew and I were both like, I mean, come on. Like, really, do we need micro blogging? And there was this whole groundswell of like, oh, do you really need to know whenever your friend goes to the bathroom? Is this a level of expression that's even worthwhile? And eventually we get mature and everybody has Twitter and we enjoy Twitter. But now we are literally at a point where we have a president that says whatever he wants on Twitter beyond what we would assume would be possible before. And captains of industry like Elon Musk are just in traffic, hopefully not driving, tweeting, traffic's driving me nuts. I'm going to have a digging company and I'm just going to get going. And I'm actually going to do this. He has to clarify.
Yeah, he's Apparently, it said he's actually going to do this. He's going to start this company to build the technology for. He wants to, because he talks about the problem with traffic is it's a two-dimensional problem, where it's not a three-dimensional problem. So if we can make it, three-dimensional, then we can go under and around and whatnot. So what he wants to do is basically figure out ways to add extra tunnels, et cetera. And he's added this to his bio already on Twitter.
Yeah, at Elon Musk, Tesla, SpaceX, tunnels, yes, tunnels, and OpenAI.
So yeah, he said it shall be called
The Boring Company. Boring.
Now,
it's what we do.
By the way, that's literally what he tweeted for audio listeners is it shall be called The Boring Company.
This was at 6 a.m. in the morning.
So now, just for a little more backup on this, though, when he's talked about their plans for going to Mars, they've talked about tunnel boring equipment. One of the things that they'd want to bring with them would be tunnel boring equipment and able to build habitats under the Martian surface. So there is sort of a cross sort of benefit there. And we're seeing that how a lot of his companies and endeavors sort of can interrelate between them. So Tesla and Solar City, there was a lot of correlation as they realized that building solar panels at your house meant you probably needed to have battery backups, and Tesla was becoming a big battery company. And the idea that Tesla could become this all-in-one lifestyle sort of company, and that's where they're going now. Like you can call them up, order a Tesla, order solar panels and a battery in your house. With SpaceX and the idea of space exploration, the idea of tunnels might be useful, et cetera. So he seems to be very, very serious about this. And what are your thoughts?
What tunnels do we need? Are these underground road? I'm trying to think of what the practical application here is.
Extra highways. Imagine more roads in places instead of.
But
you only have
underground.
so much surface area in which you could build roads, right?
Right.
So if you wanted to add another freeway, you really can't. Like in LA, we can't add another freeway, right? You could do a double-decker freeway, whatever, but it's problematic. But if you go down and you start boring under the earth, like where subways are or whatever, but you start digging massive, long roadways and stuff, and here's the funny thing. This is the funny way that he thinks, which is actually really kind of brilliant. So they announced, Solar City announced that they were going to Tesla, where they were going to put out these solar tiles, right, for roofs. And they said that they were thinking that they may actually be able to get the price of those solar panels on your roof cheaper than a new roof, than a nice new roof. And you go, how is that possible? Roofs are super simple. It's just tile, whatever. But when they went in to go look into the cost of what it costs to have tiles, et cetera, put on your roof, half of the cost or more was shipping, was how much it cost because of the weight, where his glass roofs are way much less. And so they can be competitive there. And he thinks there's a number of places if they found efficiencies or inefficiencies that they can create efficiencies there. So they're thinking that they may be able to get to the point where it is cheaper to just build one of his solar roofs than it is to get an existing tile roof, et cetera. So if you're talking about like people go like, well, tunneling's expensive. It's super, super expensive. It is. You know what else is expensive? Real estate in Los Angeles and San Francisco. And you're at a point where it might be just cheaper to dig.
So here's my question. And by the way, if you look at, they just 2 years ago opened the new expanse of the Bay Bridge, which is how I get from Oakland to San Francisco. And that was about, how many hundreds of millions of dollars over budget and about 10 years too late. So the idea that there needs to be newer, safer ways to get from one place to another in the Bay Area is not, new. It certainly is a problem. The first thing that pops into my mind, though, and I'm sure anybody from Boston probably immediately thinks this too, is that, underground highways like what they saw with the Big Dig can be problematic and expensive and something that is a tremendous disruption for many, many years. So what I wonder is not to cast doubts on somebody as smart as Elon Musk, but rather what is the process, the order of operations to do something like this?
Right, because we have an entire infrastructure right underground, right, between gas lines, power lines, cable lines, phone lines, whatever, that are, I guess, relatively not very far below the surface. But you still have to find a way through all of that and all of that property, and then connect it to all the major roadways. Not that it's impossible, because these are really long-term goals.
Well, Well, yeah, those it's not a snap your fingers and it's solved problem, but it is a question of have we do build tunnels. We do a lot of that. That's an existing thing that we do. And there's certain cities in Europe that have tons of them to get around. We have subway systems, etc. It's in places where it's been cost effective no matter what, like New York City, riddled with tunnels. They've been building there is in New York City, they're building tunnels like in the 19th century for bringing cattle from like near the Grand Central to the port. There's still an underground narrow cattle tunnel there. Like these things have always been very useful. The problem has just been costs and those things. But if you have a way to say, listen, we can get through 100 feet of dirt at a fraction of the cost before, and we can go deeper and we can do this, that could be revolutionary. And we all sort of imagine that so much of the future is when you talk about what do we imagine we're going to have in the future? We're going to have robots we talk to. We're going to be going to other planets. We have cars that drive themselves, flying cars. And then a lot of stuff's underground. A lot of stuff is underground. We always sort of imagine that we're going to be building more stuff underground. And I think that comes up. So this kind of falls in the category of let's improve the technology for doing that. So go deeper. There's this stuff, but you've got, several thousand miles till you reach the core. Of course, a couple miles down, it starts to get really warm, but you can go much further down. You've got a lot of, opportunity there.
And I guess when you think of like retro futurism and the ideas of like we could live in these big colony compounds where you've got transportation and residential and shopping all in one sort of tiered system rather than building up, it might make sense to build down.
Yeah, and you could start getting rid of a lot of roads and things like that, build more greenways, make things greenify, whatever you want to call that. You have that opportunity to do that. And there is, and things, the way you can make it work too is the problem with so many of these projects is that once the government is the person paying for it, costs go out of control because there are far more people who are looking to make a buck off that system and can get in on that. Like that's the problem with like our high-speed rail system in California. It's the most expensive per mile rail system in the world and the slowest. Mm-hmm. And and it's, you start looking at all of who makes money off this thing: construction firms, unions, landowners, everything. It's just a big, huge cash pile that people want to start grabbing. And the cost of it, if it gets more expensive, then most people are like, hey, yeah, well, maybe we'll take us 5 years longer to pay it off, becomes this sort of thinking, and it becomes this problematic thing. An approach towards this could be if you were Elon Musk and a consortium could say, hey, we'll pay City of Los Angeles for permission to build this thing. We're going to pay you to build it. We're not going to ask for a single dime. We just want permitting. We want to be able to do this and make sure that we're not going to have landowners upset, whatever. But that could be an approach towards it. Is that you say instead of it being something that the public has to pay for, it becomes a totally a private road. And people are like, oh, private roads. Ooh, we have toll roads already. We already pay for transportation. So why not just get us out of the business of having to subsidize it, because we always lose money. Look at stadiums. Stadiums are like, an example. We just pour tons of money into something to enrich a few people. But if we flipped that and went to a private toll road system for that, might be an opportunity.
So I guess that's my next question is, who owns the ground that you are tunneling under? Obviously, there is restrictions to how much you own. If you own a land or a building, how much you own above you. How much do you own below you?
That can depend. So there's mineral rights and things like that. I don't know, and I don't know how that would vary city by city or state by state as far as that. And also, in if you look at like some deeds and things like that too, sometimes the way part of the reason the eminent domain sort of works is like you have a title to something, but you don't actually own it too. So we'll see. But you could declare eminent domain and say, yeah, it's not going to interfere, whatever. Or we've determined that this isn't going to be too problematic, and go about it.
Do you think underground property, and first I'm still like stuck on like thinking about underground residential, like living underground almost. I've already jumped to like chuds basically. Is it
where are the what about whither the chuds?
Is it going to be? Do you think we will see underground as as a luxury move, as a step up, so to speak, or do you think it will be like I wonder where underground life will land on our cultural scale of
Well, I mean, Bryce, think about like where do high rises, and the answer can be different things. You have some high rises in cities that are great, and some of them are projects which are scary. I think that when you talk about a place like Bay Area, like Bay Area, you have really rent control and things like that have made it just incredibly restrictive and almost difficult to sort of increase the capacity to build lower cost housing there, right? Mm-hmm. But because the people who live there and have housing do not want to see those. They don't want lower cost housing. They're happy with they're happy with their housing prices going up. Yeah. And you have very problematic situation. But if you have this technology that says, hey, we can readily add 100 acres or whatever of underground land for living there, like I think initially it'll be upper middle class, but I think that eventually if you have a choice between a place with a really nice view mm-hmm. versus a place that's not, but you might start building houses with like very, very narrow sort of, imagine a house that's like, you talk about these micro houses. Imagine a house that's, 40 feet by 40 feet across and goes straight down and just as a skylight.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
I think about like the apartment I'm in, you could cut, my apartment out here in LA is, it's a 1-bedroom apartment. And if I cut this thing in half and built 3 stories up and put skylights there or whatever, it would be $1 million place in LA.
You know what I just realized? We've been thinking terrestrial, you guys. Like space mining, boring in space. I mean, that's actually a really perfect synergy, huh? Am I late to this party?
Space, Bryce, because it's already space, but.
Well, okay. Outer space.
That's what I mentioned at the top. Was that Elon had talked about Mars, and that part of what they wanted to bring to Mars was boring equipment. Mm-hmm. And so, I think that's where the cross purposes of his companies, where Tesla and Solar work together with SpaceX and the Boring Company, there might be he has a reason to say, hey, we have the technology, for that.
Mm-mm. So, can we parse exactly how serious this is? And obviously, he went out and said, "Hey, this is very, very serious." But with Hyperloop, he came out, put out the white paper, and said, "Everybody who works with me is saying, like, please just get this out of your head, put it out there into the world, and let's just see what happens with it because we can't afford to have you focus on it." Is this in a year? Are we going to be talking about the Boring Company, or is this something that Elon is fixated on currently?
He's going to have a group of engineers at my prediction time, SpaceX engineers working on boring equipment for both Mars and Earth, looking for innovations and things they can do there. And I think this came about because they've already made some realizations about areas for improving efficiency.
So this is something where it's like now they have the equipment, they have the solutions, they have the ideas on what they're going to do, and now it's like, well, hell, why don't we just go ahead and turn those drills downward right here and just see what we can do?
Well, he could go buy a company. Like now, the amount of wealth he has to buy a construction company or invest in a company that is already doing this, or to partner with somebody like that, is not infeasible at all. He can go get at the meeting if he says, hey, my engineers have some new solutions. Let's talk about this so we can work with existing companies that are doing this and say, hey, here's an approach. So he has that capability.
Yeah, well, because there are a lot of opportunities above and below, on and off Earth.
And he can imagine if Elon Musk says, as a guy, his reputation as engineer, and again, let's make it very clear. This could be he could be totally deluded, totally crazy here, whatever, where he seems to have a really good batting average, though. He could go to a company like De Beers, one of the biggest mining companies in the world, and say, hey, do you guys want to put some money into this project? I've got some engineers that got something new. You want to put a few $100 million into seeing if we can develop something that's faster and better, and build a better boring machine. Step one, build a better boring machine. Build a machine that is better, that takes advantage of what he knows about automation, all these other things. Do we think that Elon Musk could probably take existing industrial boring machines and radically improve them, build them cheaper?
Yeah, 110%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, sorry, go ahead. Keep going.
What is the value for that in mining alone? What is the value for that in there? And there are tons of other smaller applications. Like every day we're digging tunnels to put fiber optic cable. Every day we're digging tunnels for sewers. Every day there's an active industry of doing these things. So if he can create the boring company and say, hey, we can go and we're going to go bid on some of these projects and stuff to go build these, you already got to build a sewer line. And then maybe say like, hey, you got to build a new sewer line. Why don't we make it a little bit bigger? We can put sewer and put some other stuff there.
Yeah. Well, not to mention like things like coal and natural gas and like excavation, just straight excavation work. Like that seems like the optimization, especially at that level, could help a ton of industries.
Yeah, I don't, it's an area where one of the things that he's realized is there are certain industries in which there has been a lack of the amount of engineering talent has not been there. And so that happened with electric cars, is that you had either the big companies, which were not really known for radical innovations and not really savvy to kind of the how to make things faster and iterate faster mentality, were not really leading with electric cars. So he was able to take some brilliant engineers and go for a lot of low-hanging fruit. A lot of what he was trying to do were things that people were like, well, yeah, no, of course you use lithium-ion instead of this. Of course you use regenerative braking. Of course you do these sorts of things. He was able to go after low-hanging fruit there. The same thing happens, with space. He looked at like, man, we have not built a brand new American-designed rocket engine in like 40 years, and the tools have gotten better and the design systems have gotten better. Maybe it could be done. And he went into an industry where people were like, had been stuck. We're very, very stuck because they had a market for what they're doing and there wasn't innovation, cars, spaceships, things like that. So does he have the ability to go into an industry like mining machines? Yeah.
I mean, 150%. I mean, there is no part of this that I don't think he can be successful in, because it does fit all the criteria of the kind of stuff that he tends to have a good track record in. It's a big problem, right? It really relies on, like you said, just fundamental innovation by way of efficiency, and it has that like big picture, we're changing the world kind of thing that he tends to really get, hyped up about.
What do you think? What major industry do you think he's going to get in when the line at Chipotle is too long? Like, do you think that this is something he's been thinking a lot and considering a lot, or do you think the genesis of this were these tweets?
Yeah, no, that is a good question. How long ago did he start thinking about having it be an Earth applicable company? Not the idea of doing the tunnels on Mars, but no, we need to do it here. Months, weeks, minutes before he tweeted.
Years. I think he's mentioned this before. I think he's brought this up before. He's talked about the idea of putting things in the center lane, doing elevated car pathways, things like this. He's been very fixated on transportation and traffic. This has very much been a topic for him. Mm-hmm. And how far away is he from trying to fix the line at Chipotle? I don't know. I mean, he's talked about Martian pizza parlors, so who knows? I think that it certainly is.
It's a long game. Oh my God.
Yeah. But by the way, I think Chipotle did a pretty good job of solving the long lines at Chipotle.
I think that for him, if you look at and you say there are a couple of things, you look at like what part of the future don't we have? And he's been very good at saying these are the things that we think we're going to have in the future we don't have now and we could have now. It's not these things aren't really they're not science problems. We're not trying to build warp drive. We're just trying to take we're taking things that have not evolved in the last 50 or 60 years and applying some engineering to it. So he's good at those. Transportation's a big thing. I think also for him, he is getting into every sector of the economy in going deep. So Tesla was cars, Tesla plus Solar City is cars and energy. SpaceX is spaceships, but also means satellites, which means communications, which we know that SpaceX is building their own. They announced plans to put 4,000 satellites into low Earth orbit to blanket the planet in high-speed internet. So he keeps looking at it. Then what is the biggest financial frontier? What is like really the biggest mainstay ever? It's real estate. And so a system of, being able to, have these boring machines and things like that to take high-priced two-dimensional real estate and turn it into three-dimensional, environments, could be huge.
Yeah.
Man, here's like, obviously we are in love with Elon Musk. We talk about Elon Musk a lot, and we praise him on every step. And when he does Tesla and Solar City, oh my God, these gigantic batteries and solar panels to harness the energy. SpaceX, these satellites out there in space. The Boring Company, he's going to find a better, more efficient way to dig holes. We're all going to be just showering him in praise right up to the point where he lets us know that he's harnessing the sun's energy to shoot a laser into the Earth's core unless we pay him all the world's money. Like, this is all, we're all just going to be like, hooray, hooray, Elon Musk, until he actually is like, no, I'm a real Bond villain. Remember the joke of me being a Bond villain? I'm a real Bond villain. Pay me all the world's money.
I'm okay with this.
I, for one, welcome our South American South African entrepreneur overlord.
There was one of my favorite Superman comics was this storyline of like, what if like Lex Luthor won and became president, and we lived under the rule of Lex Luthor. Did you ever read this?
Yes. No. It's one of our favorite topics of conversation.
Yeah. Let's talk about Bryce too.
Yeah.
I've heard about that arc, I believe. But
and anyhow, the long story short is Utopia turns out really, really good. Things are, because he is, this brilliant mastermind, who actually has this great noble vision, which I always love that version of Lex Luthor. And, I listen, I actually was a thought that I was going to bring up is like, at what point do we know that he's now a Bond villain, and, listen, like I said, I think it's his simulation, and
you think he's the user at the commands, running the same? Wow.
Because it's a scenario where like he gets to build spaceships, electric cars. Tony Stark gets based on him. He gets to date and the most beautiful women in the world.
Sure. Well, and like, Earth Mover, like terraforming options. Like this is his mind. Yeah. This is his Minecraft.
Yeah, we're just he's told us too. It's a simulation. It's
just
clearly.
Well,
and now he's like the open AI thing because he's afraid of the next level that are going to throw against him. The big boss is going to be some monster AI, so he's got his own company working to try to fight this.
To make his own companions, sure.
Or to fight.
Andrew, that doesn't look like anything to me. But what does look like something to me is patreon.com/weirdthings. You can support us at patreon.com/weirdthings. And thank you to everybody who has. Obviously, during the holidays, this is a time where money gets a little tight, and we want to thank everybody extra for being with us during December. It really, really means a lot to us, and it's the reason why we are able to be here every week, except for Brian this week. He doesn't get a check. So other than that, we are all very, very appreciative, except for Brian this week. But other than that, me, Andrew, Bryce, we love you every week. And Brian loves you every week, but this
except for this week.
Yeah, and it really does not love you this week. It's just...
Yeah. And don't forget, you can get the after show, After Things, on an RSS feed early if you subscribe via patreon.com. You'll get it the day it comes out and not on Wednesday when it goes out to everybody in public. So check it out. They make it really easy. You don't even have to deal with like login stuff. So patreon.com/weirdthings.
Yep, that After Things podcast is a lot of fun, and we've had people tell us that they think that may be one of the best things we do.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's always a little bit more entrepreneurial, a little more focused on projects and stuff like that. But I would encourage everybody, if you have not listened to After Things, give it a spin.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I let's do. Man, I didn't want to talk about this. I did not want to address this, but I feel it'd be remiss if we didn't address it.
What's bothering you? What's
that?
What's up? What's bothering you?
What's up? Hey, man, what's going on?
Hey.
The Magic Leap stuff.
Oh yeah, that was yes.
So
this is sensitive for Andrew and I because Andrew and I grew up in and around the town of Plantation, Florida. The fact that Magic Leap has made their home, one of the most exciting companies in tech, has made their home in Plantation, Florida, is very exciting for the both of us. And, you know, there was this little ticking clock in my head, and I know more about journalism and news cycles than I know about AR tech development, as much as I am a fan of it. And it was at a point where you got to like the third super fawning big profile about Magic Leap that didn't really show any more tech, or at least didn't allow the writers of the piece to talk about anything new that we hadn't heard of. And they were always very insistent that they were nowhere near releasing anything, a product, an SDK, anything, that they were still just grinding and grinding and grinding, that I kind of felt like there's a clock on this. And at some point, it's going to strike midnight, and we're going to start getting backlash because nothing's happened. And we have now not only at the very least hit that point, if not, we begin to get the real questions of, does the Emperor have any clothes?
Okay, let me clarify. The dividing line for me isn't like, oh, tech always takes longer. Always takes longer, okay? I have a deposit on a Model 3, right? Tesla Model 3. Do I really think I'm going to, they're going to be delivering this thing in full quantity by the end of 2017? I don't have that expectation. My friends, other friends who did that said, yeah, it'd be great. We're not planning on those things meeting that delivery date. And Elon Musk has said, he's trying to get his best efforts, whatever. And he's become aware of, yes, talking about the earliest point it could be the ready. People take the mean that that's when it's going to be ready or whatever. So, I mean, I'm used to the idea that it takes a while for things to happen, whatever. My frustration, and I don't know if this is true, but it was an article in The Information which dug into this. Remember that we showed this video that showed them playing this really kick-ass game in the office, right?
Looked amazing.
Robots
not only,
you had a gun and you were fighting off bad guys and tanks and stuff, but in your space.
It kind of had like a almost steampunky FPS alien sort of look to it. It also showed a UI for Gmail that you were able to search through. It looked great. All these big chunky icons and everything that were they are the future of AR, like we've wanted it, like we've imagined it. I mean, there was a reason why it stoked this idea, and this is what we're watching right now. If you're seeing this either live or on,
and this was tweeted out with what we're playing around the office.
Yeah,
which would imply to you what?
That
they were playing it around the office.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and we were looking at another video earlier with the solar system demo. And it even says in the video, shot directly through the Magic Leap technology.
No, but here that one I think did that one come after the video game?
It did. The Office one was
that had me a little bit worried because they had this really kick-ass video of playing this video game. They said, this is what we're doing right now, right? Mm-hmm. According to the information, the site, The Information, they said that game don't exist. That was just it was composited, whatever. They was not shot through any headgear or anything like that. That was a complete not true thing. If you know what that was their claim. Okay. So that's my problem. Number one is that it's not even like, hey, this is what it could look like. Like, we could talk about the Google Glass demo where it felt like it was like a full screen AR thing and it turned out it was a small screen, whatever, but they didn't lie. They didn't leave this false impression out there. And then when we got weeks later or months later, we got the smaller, less impressive demo. And there's a cool demo of R2-D2 and C-3PO, which is kind of cool. But we got these demos that weren't like that other one. It was sort of weird, and it kind of makes sense in the idea that, like, yeah, no, that thing. And understand, this company's funded to over $1 billion, over $1 billion in funding. And in the old Motorola building, where I was a young Motorola scholar student there, I was part of their program for aspiring engineers. And anyhow, this R2-D2 thing looks really cool. It looks really, really cool. But like now that we've heard that, like, hey, guess what? This thing that we told you that we're actually playing, that was completely not real. Like, what do we trust? And I've heard that they've had I may or may not have talked to people who've had firsthand experience with the equipment. And what they saw was extremely huge and bulky, but everybody's told the thing is getting smaller. But I think that, is it going to just become a conventional thing? Not a conventional, but is it going to become like, HoloLens?
Well, so here's what, as that information article came out, and everybody kind of descended on it. And now a lot of kind of secondary information is sort of spilling out. What seems to be the case is that what all the reporters that have come in and tried is this far larger, far bulkier, almost like the size of the machine that you do the eye tests at the optometrists, like the Better One, Better Two kind of machine.
Yeah.
That is not mobile, that does not, move around in the way that we have seen stuff. So maybe they can put it on a rig or something to shoot those videos that gives you the illusion that these are just glasses on your head, but they are having a real hard time getting that technology, which can, in how they have it in that gigantic machine, effectively do the magic that beams the stuff into your field of vision, as opposed to putting like the glass there in front of it. But they can't get it to scale down as of yet. And that's what the holdup, and that's what the problem is.
Yeah, which is similarly not the issue that the HoloLenses have, because we've seen HoloLens units and they are starting to take shape in what they will actually be, even though they're doing the exact same thing as shooting these big immersive demos through this technology, even though it may not be representative of what the final product is. But we actually don't know what the HoloLens will look like and what we should expect from it at all, other than these videos.
Oh no, HoloLens is like shipping.
HoloLens is out there.
Oh wow,
there's developer.
So I mean, it's even further along than. Yeah.
HoloLens is a product. HoloLens. The problem with HoloLens was the realization that what you see is this very narrow field of view. It's not like a 170-degree AR. It's a very small window thing that just the slightest move of your head, it goes out of there. But they've apparently built really good room sensing. Microsoft's built really good room sensing. The augmented parts of it seem to be really good. And it's going to be a matter of incrementally increasing that field of view. And I think once that field of view encompasses your total field of view, it could be a great product. And we know Apple's working on this too. Apple's got their own plans for this. Tim Cook has talked about how excited he is about augmented reality. And so we may see there is not a major augmented reality player right now. And I think that is going to be, we're going to see what happens between Oculus and Vive and whatnot, and that back and forth there. But I think that the key to really, the really thing that we want is, the thing needs to be standalone. It needs to be self-contained. Somebody sent me this. Hey, they got a cool backpack you can put your VR stuff into. And like that's the jankiest, dumbest thing in the world. That's 2 years from now that's sitting in your drawer because it's just like, yeah, remember when we were plugged into our desktop, or remember when we had to wear the backpack for this?
Yeah. Oh no, it's the briefcase telephone that my dad used to have back in the late 80s, early 90s, right? Like it's a ridiculous concept from where you assume we are going, as everything obviously gets faster and smaller. But man, Andrew, do you feel that there is an irreparable trust lost in Magic Leap?
I feel taken because, we showed that, we talked about that video before, saying that, repeating what they told us. They said, hey, yeah, this thing's apparently real. This thing's been working on, blah, blah, blah. We repeated it. I repeated. Like, there are some stories, by the way, sometimes people send me that I don't do on Weird Things because they're sort of BS stories that are meant to just sort of kind of get people talking about stuff. And I think they're just sort of deceptive. There's not a story there. I feel I would like to be wrong. I would like to believe that they really do have something cool, and they weren't just ran headfirst into something that realized there was a technological limitation, and they were just trying to desperately win over people. Because we talked about, remember when HoloLens came out, our prediction was we're going to see something from Magic Leap soon, and we did, because Magic Leap felt like they had to answer it. I'm personally a little frustrated at the fact that it's not a matter of that was not presented, it was deceptive, and I'm bothered by that.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly, even if they even if they make a product that does exactly what they showed in that video, this is still a big PR hit, just in general. Like, regardless of the tech and trust, like, you have put a lot of publications and a lot of people who have read these stories and thought that,
and their head of PR left. They've had a couple people left. There's another venture. I think Andy Rubin, I think, is doing his own sort of project. A former Google guy, I think it was by Nest, et cetera, or the Fidel. But anyhow, Android rather. And so he's off doing something. So I've heard a couple Magic Leap people have left that. A new marketing officer rather. So that's. We'll see. My frustration just comes from the way that was presented. The way that it was presented was to sort of say, hey, this is where we are, but it turns out that no, and we've been talking about them for 2 years now. And I'm ready. Like, I'm going to concede the future of AR right now to Apple and Microsoft, maybe Google. Google has the potential for that. But they've been so reactionary after what happened with the Glass.
Sure.
So they've got great tech, though.
What do you like in a large picture? What do you think will be the most successful of the types of augmented or virtual reality that we've seen? The Google VR stuff, which is all phone and device based. You've got things like the Vive and the Oculus, which are very desktop, big room experiences. You've got HoloLens, which is trying to be a dedicated, unconnected AR device. Like, what of those like appeals to you in a way that you think will ultimately win, ultimately kind of come out ahead of the others?
I think it's going to be a standalone device. I think that the Google Gear and stuff like that, which was actually based upon, by the way, credit to USC's MXR lab. I mean, they were the ones that were like, they were the ones that sort of pioneered that whole thing. I built a Google Cardboard before Google came out with it because it was called something else when USC had their plans and stuff for it. Anybody could download and do it. So they got a lot of credit for something they certainly got behind, but it existed before them. But anyhow, I think it's a neat thing. It's a neat gimmicky thing you can do with your phone, but that's all it is. They've got some cool apps like the Cardboard camera app for the iPhone and for Android is really cool. But it's not the difference between that and actual really good VR, like totally immersive, is a world of difference. A world of difference between that and when you do the Vive and you have full sensing, presence sensing. So phones are going to get more sophisticated and we'll be able to do that. You have the hardware in there, but you still need to have a lot of hardware in the headset. So you're going to still need a couple $100 device to really give you good sound, really good lenses and stuff. And it's just like, might as well just make it a self-contained device with a much wider view screen and et cetera to handle these things and balance the weight in the back of your head. So the future form of this is going to be a standalone device that you might have apps that work on both your phone and that. I think that we're seeing a very interesting approach, like what the Nintendo Switch is, what they're trying to do, and the idea of the thing that moves with you and the integration of games across the board. But I believe it is absolutely a standalone device.
So it does, in the interest of full disclosure, the CEO of Magic Leap, Ronnie Abovitz, did respond on Twitter to the information article with a picture on December 9th. Which is a billboard. I'm assuming a fake billboard, or maybe this is another Magic Leap thing. But it is a big billboard that has a train kind of charging into what looks like the ocean. And it says Magic Leap is coming. And he just writes "believe" with a smiley face with sunglasses on. He then tweeted out a bunch of Wikipedias to albums, and then did a little a clearing of bits in which he, kind of defended his position with Magic Leap. He has continued to tweet about it. He is certainly, in the tweet through it philosophy, but he continues to feel that this is on track. Nothing to see here. This article is just a misconception of people not understanding exactly how they do things at Magic Leap.
Yeah, so he's like, hey, yeah, the video's shot directly through here. We pointed out they're shot directly through there. Like, yeah, but you also put out a video that said we're playing this. This is a thing. And so when does that mean? I mean, how do we evaluate anything that comes out of your PR department? How do we evaluate anything?
It's putting the onus on us to say, oh, you believe that? I mean, we
You didn't
say
see the
it.
caption, guys.
Yeah.
There's no caption.
This one didn't have the caption, even though none of them had the caption because that was the first one. You know,
Yeah,
like,
so.
And also there was, and granted, Magic Leap has been very cagey about what they say and when they say it, right? But
Sure.
it certainly seemed like what they were putting out was that when this was done with Weta, the special effects company, that you assumed the graphics were created by Weta, not the entire video, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I hope he serves us up a big plate of crow. I hope I hope my frustration's misguided and that I'm overblown on this and that I'm going to owe him a big, huge apology for my disappointment and not believing. I hope that's the case.
I mean, that's, listen, obviously, I mean, I will cop to the fact that I root for Magic Leap more than I root for other companies because it's from a town that I lived in. So, like, that might be provincial of me, but I do, between that and how cool the promise of it is, I think that there's that. But ultimately, it's like, yeah, they might have a great technological solution. But like Andrew said, I think you're totally right. If it's not portable, if it's not wearable, if it doesn't really materially affect my life, like, I don't know. I feel like we've had, you'll always go ahead and buy the next new thing if you're interested in the incremental success. But, we're looking for the home run. We're looking for the change the game product. And it seemed like Magic Leap could be that. For me, I'm with you, Andrew. I think that I have less faith that they're that.
I'm kind of increasingly turning my eyes towards Apple to see what happens there. They never talk about what they're going to do, but when they started talking about wearables being an exciting future, eventually we got the Apple Watch, which I think is as far as digital watch assistance has become a very solid device, very, very solid and useful, is certainly the leader in what it does. And if you want a watch and you want a smartwatch, that's the watch you get. The overall market for that, I bought one. I'm not wearing it, so that's debatable. As far as augmented reality systems and the difference between augmented and VR, and augmented reality, in theory, you can make an augmented reality device that can also do VR. Augmented is where it projects images on the world around you, where VR is you're just totally, looking at screens. I think AR could be absolutely, absolutely huge. I think that, I've been talking to people who are working in AR about stuff and, things that, or just to think about the idea that imagine with the release of Rogue One, you could have every major city at parks had Rogue One meetups where if you brought an augmented reality headset there, you could play a game in the open field there that was location specific to that. You could
It'd be great. I mean, one of my favorite video game moments this year, and granted, I do not play a ton of video games, but was when Pokemon Go was at its height, and you could just walk outside, and there were like just 15 people just hanging out, like looking to do a thing in a physical place, and you're like, man, like we should find more reasons to do this, random strangers. Like this seems like a cool thing.
And as it gets cheaper and easier to develop for those sorts of things, you'll see more and more of those as smaller experiences, like Andrew is talking about, like a Rogue One promotional thing.
And you could do things like we have if the imaging sensors were better, but you could right now. You could put on a headset, walk around your house, have it make a virtual map of your house, and then turn your house into a haunted house. Where you turn out the lights, you hear spooky things, you walk around, and it knows where windows are and doors are and things like that because it just does that, and it creates a completely terrifying experience in your own house, and your friends can come over and you can play that. You could do things like you could start turning real spaces into quests in Dungeons and Dragons style adventures. You can turn existing infrastructures. You take escape room stuff, you take abandoned buildings or whatever and stuff. There is an entirely new economy based around augmented reality systems that I see there of experiences.
Yeah. And like we've mentioned, the software is going to get easier to make and the hardware is going to become cheaper. That's just going to happen.
I've done VR programming using Unity or Unreal. I've gone in there and I've done that. before I knew anything about programming. And that high-end game development software has become extremely easy to use. That a chimp like me can go in there and create virtual realms and stuff. And as you say, Brian, it's going to get even simpler. And that's a big thing. Is games have become more sophisticated. Game makers are trying to make the tools to make it easier to do.
Yeah.
So, gentlemen, let's just go to picks.
Okay.
And because we'll go jump into after things. That's cool.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah. So we're gonna table the Journey Quest until we get our full
a
crew
super
back.
short Journey Quest image for you right now. Brian is being tortured in some horrific way. Leave it to your imagination.
Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there.
I'm down for that for some reason.
Yeah. About some
Picks. Andrew, do you got a pick?
I have a pick, and let me tell you what. All right, if you don't like this, shut up, world. This is one of my favorite movies of the year. It is a delightful movie. It is from a director whose last movie I loved and thought was a textbook example of how to build great characters. And talking about Taika Waititi, whose name I can never pronounce right, but nobody else can, who directed What We Do in Shadows, which was an utterly fantastic, mockumentary about vampires that just made you really, really like the characters the more that it developed, and just had so much more heart than you expected out of what you thought was just going to be a bunch of fun gags. And then his latest movie is The Hunt for the Wilder People. All right, The Hunt for the Wilder People is an adventure comedy drama. It stars Sam Neill and then Julian Dennison as the kid. It is based on, I think it was based on a story. Then he wrote an adaptation of it. It is heartfelt. It's hilarious. The characters in it are wonderful. If you saw the trailer, you're like, oh, that looks like fun. See the movie. Get it however you can. It is just, I thought it was just such a delightful movie. So Hunt for the Wilder People.
Where'd you see that? Did you see that in the theater?
Well, it was a week ago on iTunes. It was a 99-cent rental.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
But,
Juice, you got a pick?
Yeah, Ashley and I on Friday night we decided that we were just going to stay in, and we started watching Black Mirror, and we were only watched the first one with the Prime Minister and his dilemma there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I was excited to watch more. I had some kind of questions about the general morality of that story, but in all things being equal, I'm excited to dig into what I know is a tremendously praised and obviously well created series.
Mm-mm. So you guys only got one episode in though?
Dude, we were up.
Well, you guys are traveling a lot.
Doing Rogue One the night before that we kind of wound up crashing out. It's all me. I literally was like falling asleep by the end of it, and then we just went to sleep early.
What I forgot to add and just point out in the chat room, the director of The Hunt for the Wilder People, his next movie is Thor Ragnarok, which just made me even more excited about that movie. But Black Mirror, so the Bryce Dallas Howard episode, that I never finished it. I thought it was really well done, and I'm like, yeah, this is like a sad documentary that just made me just so depressed that I can't continue.
Aw. Well, I mean, that's like the credo of Black Mirror, right? Is like the futility of future tech. Like, I don't know. I think it's cool. That one episode that one wasn't my favorite. That first episode of season 3, but a lot of good stories in there. I got a pick.
Go.
I watched this for Cord Killers. I recommend shows on Cord Killers for people, and I ended up falling in love with it, and I finished it maybe last week or so. It's called 3%. Have you guys seen this? You heard about this? Yeah.
Heard about it.
It's
Is this the Brazilian one?
Yeah, it's like one of Netflix's first Brazilian productions, and it's got this kind of sci-fi. It's kind of set like a young adult dystopian movie, but without the things that I don't like about young adult dystopian movies. Right? It's not a lot of heavy on romance. There's a lot of twists and suspense. There's a lot of like actually seeing future tech and the ramifications of it in society. The idea being that like every year anyone who is age 20, I want to say, has to take this test, and if they pass, they get to go to the offshore, which is a big utopian high society, easy living life. But only 3% of the entrants who enter every year are allowed to pass. So you've only got, a couple of dozen kids a year who get to go and live on this island. And the ramifications of groups that like worship the test as like a religious deity almost, the groups that want to dismantle the test, the politics from the upper society itself on how they want the test to be run. There's a lot of really interesting things here. And this came out around the time Westworld was on, and I was recommending it to people if you didn't think you were getting enough answers out of Westworld, because it is some similar thoughts and ideas, or at least themes, thematic images, but with a little more standard arcs, little episode arcs. I think it's really cool. That's 3%. It's in Portuguese, so you have to watch with subtitles. Or there's an English dub, but I don't love it.
I watched Napoleon Dynamite, and all I can think about is when he sits down in the cafeteria with the girl, like, do you drink 1% milk because you think you're fat?
I'm surprised no one. I'm surprised they don't make a 3% milk joke in the series. That's weird.
That movie was so good. So I watched it, and I never, I never stayed through the credits and watched the end with the wedding scene.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I had no idea. I'm like, what? There's more. That was my brother one day. We watched that together. My brother said to me, like, have you seen Napoleon Dynamite? I'm like, no. He's like, I don't know what to make of it. We start watching it, and I'm just crying, laughing hysterically. My brother starts laughing because he needed somebody else to tell him, no, this is where it's fun. This is why, this is, yeah.
It's funny because they're weird, but they're endearing because they're weird. But you kind of feel like you're maybe making fun of them, but you're not, because they're so endearing.
Yeah.
Come on, Napoleon, I'm training to be a cage fighter. It's like he's at the door talking to the girl, and she's talking about saving money for college, and Kip yells, your mom goes to college. And you're like, it's not even really a put down, but it's a put down. And she runs, it's so many. That's my deal. Your mom goes to college. Listen, your mom goes to college, and this has been Weird Things. Thank you for joining us.
It's been weird.
Mm-hmm. All right.
I need to take a minute. It got really hot in this room at one point.
Yeah.
I did what?
Oh, BRB. Scotty says this is perfect Napoleon Dynamite dancing music. How's everyone doing? We feeling good? An hour in, we're feeling good?
Good. I need to get more water.
Yeah, go for it. What am I playing lately? I'm playing a lot of Let It Die on my PS4. It's like a Dark Soulsy type of game. It's action adventure in a big tower, and it's I don't know. I don't like those types of games. It's a free-to-play game, and so there are like some free-to-play systems in there that I haven't really bumped up against yet. There is this multiplayer rating element, which I hate in games, but it's so stylish and it's so fun. Yeah, the Puck over on the Twitch chat says Uncle Death. Yeah, Uncle Death is so amazing. He's a skeleton who skateboards and has cool sunglasses, man. It has no right being as good as it is because it's from Suda51 or it's from Grasshopper, and so it could be great or it could have been total junk, but it's stylish. So And now I'm thinking, like, for a free-to-play game, like, it's got me thinking, like, oh, I need to log in. I haven't logged in today to get my login
What's that?
bonus. This new free-to-play game on the PlayStation, it's called Let It Die. And so it's like Dark Souls, if Dark Souls was free-to-play. But, I don't know. Nothing about it I should like. I shouldn't like any of it. But I really do. God, the first... Okay, can I tell you about the first boss? The first big boss that you fight?
Mm-hmm.
It's a guy who, as a kid, he cut off his own arms because he was super handyman as a kid. He cut off his arms and attached them to his head so that he had better like could do mechanical stuff better. And he as a kid he liked to count the thread on screws or on nails. He would like count how many threads there were. And so when you fight him in the game, he's this head attached to this giant subway train / battle arena. Like, his head is on the front of a subway full of enemies and traps and saw blades and flamethrowers and machine guns. Oh, that's weird.
It's like a story ripped from the headlines.
Yeah, right. And as a skateboarding skeleton, come on.
Oh, dude, cowabunga.
Cowabunga, dude.
What is it? No, I've seen a lot of people talk about it. Let It Die, right?
Let It Die, yeah. And like another thing that blows me away. So the music director is Akira Yamaoka, who did all the music for Silent Hill for almost ever. And so he's got a lot of original music. But then they also went to Japan and talked to a bunch of J-rock artists, and instead of paying for, licensing music, they just asked them to make a song. And so there's like 100 original songs from all these bands. And the way that they got them to do it was with the stipulation that all the songs have to have the same title. So it's 100 plus songs all called Let It Die on the soundtrack. It's so... Oh, God. You eat frogs and scorpions and snails and stuff too for potions.
I feel like this is just made for you. Like, this is just your game.
It is like, it's styled that way, and I think that's why I'm playing it, because I wouldn't normally play the type of game.
Yeah.
But man,
no, I mean, it's very, very popular. It's very popular on the interwebs.
On the interwebs, yeah.
But it definitely seems right that like tailor made for Bryce.
Well, right. Like, I love the guy who runs the company. I love the musician who does all the music stuff. There's a lot of like weird big names attached. Like, I think Mark Hamill is on the actor list, but he he is just a player character voice. He just does the grunts of the voiceless characters.
Oh, Jesus, really?
Yeah.
It's like, I think it's true that it was like George Clooney that did all the barks for like the gay dog in like the first like 2 seasons of South Park.
Wait, really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, I didn't know that. So yeah. So this has got here we go. Where is this? Mark Hamill. Oh no, Mark Hamill's the narrator who you hear like a minute of. Billy D. Williams is one of the player character voices.
Jesus, Tracy Lords.
Deborah Wilson. Vern Troyer voices one of the Jackal characters. Like,
I gotta say, man, I do feel like all these people are eminently gettable for a video game. Like, it is a cool, fun, eclectic list. But I don't look at anybody and be like, oh my God, how'd they clear their schedule?
Sure. I'm sure Deborah Wilson's probably not doing a whole lot right now, but
I mean, like, you can get Vern Troyer probably for a birthday for the right price. And not to say that you don't, like, it's
sure.
Everyone's got to eat.
Everyone's got their price, is what Justin says.
Everyone, yeah, I'm like the $1 Million Man. Everybody's got a price.
All right, you guys want to do some after things?
Get after.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's do that show now in 3, 2.
Welcome to the After Things podcast. I'm Andrew Main, joined by Justin Robert Young.
Hello.
and Mr. Bryce Neshcom Castillo.
Hi, everybody. Welcome.
So this is the thing where we talk about after, or so we like to say here on the show. We don't have Brian here, but that's fine. Brian's
him?
doing his own thing.
Who needs him?
I wanted to throw a question to you guys. I actually had this during Weird Things, and I decided I would throw it out at you now. I'm going to ask you the question, and I'm going to try to stumble through my answer and give you a chance to think about your own. And we've mentioned in Weird Things about how Elon Musk has announced that he wants to build the Boring Company to actually bore holes through the center of the Earth because he's Elon Musk, and why not? If he put out a tweet tomorrow that said, "Hey, teleportation, I think we've cracked it," I mean, it would just set the world on fire. It would it'd be like April Fools, but it's not April Fools. Ha ha ha.
Yeah.
So
He would do that.
Yes.
yeah, I think he'd be careful about that now, because I think that he knows. He mentioned something about a hyperloop, and the next thing you know, he's got thousands of engineering students around the world excited about this, and 2 companies have been formed, and capital and all this. Which oh, did they tell people about that? Oh man, okay. So Moonshot. If you were to throw money at a project, if you could choose a project to throw money into to say, hey, I want to make this thing a reality, what would that be? And examples would be that, like, you have Larry Page at Google is putting tons of money. He's got not one, but 2 flying car companies. That's the thing that he wants to do. Mm-hmm. Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk are both working on reusable rockets. So that's something that's kind of another moonshot. You have Google, which is putting money into life extension technology, and Richard Branson into space tourism. So those are some of the examples of those sort of like, hey, I've got a bunch of money, I'm going to throw it into there. AI has become one of these things that people are throwing money into. So I'm kind of curious to think like, okay, what would you throw money into? And I'll start off with my answer would be that I think an area that you could do a lot of really cool stuff that is an existing area, but if we rethought the way we went about it, we could do something really different. And 3D printing was had a lot of neat potential about it. The problem with 3D printing is that we had a lot of companies making the same damn product, and I think that there's an inherent flaw in 3D printing replication machines, either with the filament kind or the liquid kind, in that the filament kind, you're only going to get a certain amount of accuracy out of what you make using sort of that method. Mm-hmm. With the filament systems, the resin-based ones, you can only fine-tune it to a certain point, and you can only use certain kinds of materials to do that. There are things that use like metal and lasers and sintering and stuff. I think there is another way to build a 3D printer that is a very different functioning 3D printer that's not the same thing like everything else, for doing really cool 3D manufacturing type things, a different kind of like almost a replicator level thing. And I could see if you had the money where you'd put in there in engineering. So that would be my thing, with like, oh, I would build a very cool scalable 3D printing system based on a different method than what we've seen with like the way the filaments work and the systems like that. And I would say, yeah, if I had $1 billion, I'd put $1 billion into that, because I can envision something that could make just about anything if you go about it the right way. So that would be an example.
I think this was my first thought, mainly because I've thought about it a lot when we talk about things like the singularity and consciousness and virtual virtual clones. I think the thing that I would be interested in moonshotting would be cognition. I don't know a word for it, but cognition possession, the ability to like not just make a clone of yourself, but to move your perception and your awareness, like the you that chooses and experiences your life into either a virtual or another physical host,
like a neural lace kind of thing, or
maybe I don't know what it is, and this maybe is getting supernatural, but like the idea of like if we are in a moment where we come to a singularity where we think okay, well, all technology will sort of fold in on itself, that will leave our human bodies and our human cognitions behind, is there a way we can overcome that hurdle of like being able to make a perfect creation of our personality and the way we think and act, but is there any way to bring our actual ability to experience that clone, that cloned world? Do you know what? Do you kind of get where I'm coming with this?
Justin, jump in there. Do you get where he's going with this?
I don't.
Yeah. Oh no. I mean, I think like basically like being able to copy out your consciousness, but actually have like get to the point where you are copying your consciousness to something else, and then you start looking at your body.
Right. Because this is explored a lot.
You're like, wow, that's cool. That's my body, and now I'm in some
backing yourself up to the hard drive.
Yeah, but also like choosing to live, not even a backup, like choosing to move to the hard drive. Yeah.
Right. I think that I think a pathway to that's going to be as we start developing technologies like neural laces and stuff, and we start moving some of our cognition to other systems. And then I think that our we become more cloud based. I think that's going to be kind of maybe the pathway to that. And then because I think that as we stop trying to look for the seat of consciousness and realize that there's it's an auditorium with a lot of different seats, and we start moving those someplace into the cloud, that becomes sort of a feasible sort of thing, in my opinion.
I don't quite know what the solution is, but I feel like I would want to figure out something to do with like nourishment, like food that isn't like Soylent, that isn't just a way that you can have kind of flavorless paste and not be hungry, but something. I mean, if you're gonna look at like the pillars of society and how you can radically change things, I think food tech to me would be something that I would be very interested in if I had infinite money.
Mm-hmm.
That's very humanitarian, like the idea of like providing good, balanced food that also like is.
You kidding? Come on! I'm just trying to create some sort of wheat germ that becomes indispensable, so I can just undercut everybody.
I think that's a neat idea, and I think that the idea of when you're able to, we're one of the things we're doing that's kind of cool with in genetics is we're working on strains of crops that we were actually able to increase their ability for photosynthesis. We're actually able to make crops that can have 50% increase on their ability to absorb light from the sun, because there are they've worked well enough, but there are improvements that you can add to that. And I think that you could start getting into, and you start designing foods and stuff, is to say, okay, how do we allow you to eat this, but actually have the calories not affect you or whatever? And I'm going to say right now, it's dumb to tell people to say, well, just don't eat as much. If we great master of self-control,
Right.
If that worked, that would be a widespread solution that would be used everywhere, but it doesn't. How do we stop murder? Just don't murder people. Problem solved. Great. How do you implement that?
Oh, we should be doing that.
What's that?
We should just be doing that.
Not murdering people?
Not murdering people. Just like deciding.
Maybe. There's a pro and con to that. But yeah, but it's that we have this Paleolithic, genes and bodies that are designed for one environment, and we have to use technology to help us continues to adapt, because we can't go back. You don't really want to go back. It's not as pretty and fun as we think that it is. Some people do. And we only way forward is to figure out, wisely and responsibly using technology to do that. I would say that another thing I'd throw out there is like, years ago when I worked in like education, and when the internet first started coming about, I assumed that when the open source movement started getting attention, I just assumed we were going to see open source textbooks really, really soon. I just assumed that was a natural evolution, that you would be seeing like, hey, this is open source courseware for doing this. This is open source material for that. And there is stuff out there, but it is still not there. If you wanted to right now, if you said, hey, I'd like to get I want to get a 4-year degree for free, or testing myself online or whatever, it's hard. It's really, really difficult to do that. There's really not a pathway to that. And even just open source textbooks and stuff, textbooks have become even more expensive. And then once I understood how colleges' markets worked and things like that, where these institutes for higher learning are not actually about reducing costs. They're totally cool with students having to pay thousands of dollars on textbooks. That's fine with them, because, hey, they're getting student loans, whatever, who cares? And because so many of the people get involved and work on those, our professors, our people involved in the education institution, the school bookstores are a big source of revenue for that. It's one of these things whenever people on campuses point to the outside world and point to greed and things like that, it's like, look at what you're doing, right? You're the worst examples of these things, in my opinion. And I would love to take things like, Khan Academy and concepts like that and create a much bigger, better platform with the idea that, we're fortunate to live in the United States, to have access to education. I'm from a middle-class family, so I knew if I wanted to go to college, whatever, I'd have that opportunity. That's not the same thing for everybody. And certainly student loans help that, but they don't solve the problem of making it more affordable and making it easier for people later on in life to learn things. Mm-hmm. And they really don't help a lot when you're talking about trying to help things over. We have a lot of people moving from one country to another for better opportunities because one of the biggest problems they have there is access to education. There's not enough tools and resources for doing it because on the local level, it doesn't work. I think that things like the one laptop per child was a really neat idea, but had just really not quite understanding how the world worked as far as innovation and moving things through there. But now when you can buy an Amazon Fire tablet's $40, and it's a really good tablet for $40, what comes on this thing is amazing. And to think that, like, imagine if you had a really awesome all-in-one sort of educational resource that you could go through there and learn stuff and do stuff. I mean, that's what I would love to see. What could change the world right now would be a better widespread system for getting knowledge and learning in a very clear pathway. I want to learn to do this. I want to learn how to do that.
Well, yeah, or even just introducing more competition in those fields, right? In so many cases, it's a lot of a professor saying, "Hey, I'm telling you what book to buy, and you got to buy my book." But if there is someone who says, "Nah, I got a open source version. I've got the same information in a different way," there's a lot of potential to like bring a lot of costs down. But it's just a lot of it is tied up, in people and administration.
Part of it is also kind of dismantling the sort of shaman aesthetic to a lot of these things. That that there's a teacher and there's a professor and there's this person that makes these decisions and says and then guides you through this lesson in a very kind of top down way, as opposed to, I think part of the idea of kind of democratizing knowledge is that you can take any number of different ways. If we know for a fact that each child is different or each person is different and they'll learn differently, although you can have general groupings and patterns, and that small class sizes are better than large class sizes, then shouldn't there also be millions of different ways in which people can learn? And now maybe people work better when they're freeform, or maybe some people work better when they're more disciplined, and maybe some people do work better with a teacher, and some people work better when they're just looking at a screen, right? Or how do we test for cognition? There's or not cognition, but how much they understand the subject. I think that part of the idea is to, if the knowledge is there and can be refunneled into a million different places, that is ultimately the best.
Yeah. I think no, go finish your thought.
Well, I was just going to say that, like, I think that, it's interesting, like Amazon, the company they offer like their warehouse workers, they'll give them like educational assistance, like to help them support that, because probably working in an Amazon warehouse, they know it's not the best job in the world, and they don't want people to feel like they're stuck there forever. But what's kind of interesting is that what they they'll provide educational assistance for practical jobs that, practical education that leads to jobs. They're not like, well, we're not going to subsidize you to become, an arts major or something like that. And it hasn't got a lot of criticisms, but there's some people who are kind of upset by that. But their goal is like, no, our goal here, if we're going to have people work here and we want them to transition our goal is to help them to transition to another job, not a passion, not a hobby or something like that. And I think that there's something to the idea of, a system or things like that. If you're like, hey, I have skills, I have interests, help me figure out what those skills and interests would be the best paying ones. What can I do that? And then what education do I need to do? And just sort of some center sort of thing that just, it's like we've created like, I think Wikipedia is an awesome thing. Wikipedia is an awesome, flaws and all. Wikipedia is a really, really amazing resource, and we would be impoverished without it. I think that there is examples of things like, comes to search. For search engines, Google is a great thing. We have this great thing in Google and what they do. For selling you stuff efficiently, Amazon is really, really, fantastic in what they're able to do with that. I think that when you start talking about other sectors and stuff like education and learning stuff, we don't have that. We don't have here's the thing. This is the thing you go do.
Yeah. Kind of in a similar vein, I think it would be interesting to see some money be put towards towards, I guess, standardizing copyright law and Creative Commons law for media, kind of across globally, or in wide-reaching in a wide-reaching manner. Right now, we make a lot of YouTube videos, and we use a lot of materials, a lot of which we make, a lot of which we to buy or use, and I know for myself as someone who makes a lot of music. And releases it with Creative Commons or tries to make it as open to people who want to use it and remix it and all of that, with the understanding that, granted, I won't make a lot of money off of it anyway. There's not any one way to be like, okay, you can use it for this, because Creative Commons is kind of they're broad terms. There's details in them, but as we move into people being YouTubers, people being live streamers, people doing mobile vlogging and all sorts of stuff, there are a lot of new use cases that there's just not an easy way to put your stuff out there and say it's this, and this. And a lot of the tools that are out there either are not right, or they have contradictory information. And I don't even know how you sift through a lot of metadata problems like that, but as listening to music and consuming music on a personal level becomes easier, the barrier to entry in that is lower as things like Spotify and Apple Music have competitive prices. There isn't. As someone who would like to use that music, as someone who does use that music for things like these live streams that we do, that information and being able to put that information out there keeps people from using these services, and makes it tough for people who are on these services to make statements or a declaration of what their content is set at.
So you're saying, like, in at what level could it be a container format that contains rights information?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think of the way that I put music on say iTunes right now, and there's no way for it to work, because for iTunes, that's a money transaction, or that's a transaction with someone who has a subscription.
Yeah. I've been frustrated because, like, I made some like videos of like these 1-minute mini docs that I put on YouTube, and I had to deal with like about half a dozen times I got takedown notices because a company had laid claim to a public domain piece of music that I had all the rights to use, but because they were able to enter into YouTube a system, and like I won every single one of those, but they were collecting and by the way, it was the way the YouTube system was, they were collecting the revenue while they made that claim. And did anything happen to them at all? Were they punitively punished because they just had a bot that went through there and made these blanket claims?
Not at all.
Nothing. No. Nothing. Hours of my time was wasted to fight these claims that were clearly, and I had to write like a lengthy letter at one point. This is where I got this from, whatever. If you dispute this, please let me know the source thing, whatever, like that. And it's frustrating because it is a, an impediment. It certainly is an impediment. But the problem, of course, is like, you get innovation where there's money. You get innovation where there's money to be had. And the problem is when you're talking about music and stuff like that, there's so much content out there, and it's hard. It's hard because also the problem with Creative Commons is that it's a neat idea, but how do you enforce those?
Sure. Yeah. Well, and like what defines your claim that any one thing is Creative Commons, right? Like, a website anybody can make a website. Are you making a website for every song that you put out? I got burned by this earlier this year. SoundCloud, does have at least Creative Commons options built into their system, but there's no checking on that. So we made an edit for a video, and it was after that video was done that I realized, oh, that's not from the person who uploaded that. That they just stole that song, and we do not have the rights to make money off of this video. And so we had to recut that video and use it for different things. And this is my boring company. This is like, I would like a solution for the problems that are specific to me, you know?
Yeah, what'd be kind of neat would be you could certainly do something at the point of upload. Like if I'm uploading something to YouTube, it could tell me as it's doing this, like, here are the claims to this sort of thing, and then do you want to contest or whatever?
Sure.
Or do that. But I think you could create a container format that has that. Then people take it out. There are people who just absolutely do not think that an artist should be entitled to anything at all. That you put it out there in the world, that you have no right to expect.
Music wants to be free, man.
But it is pretty strict the way it is now. I mean, in the U.S. it's what it's life plus 75 years. Like, I think at some point information becomes shared knowledge, and I think it is sooner than life plus 75.
But I think that there's information, and then there's actually the thing itself. And I think that I've read a lot of arguments and stuff about, what, like Mickey Mouse is still under copyright. Fine. I don't think I'm impoverished by the idea that Mickey Mouse, I can't make my own Mickey Mouse cartoons. I've seen there's plenty of public domain stuff out there that are, good and crappy and all that. And I'm happy that J.K. Rowling's going to have the rights to decide what happens to Harry Potter for forever. I'm okay with that. I have no problem with that, because I don't think the answer is I don't think the solution is, well, we need to let everybody have access to it. Like, no, let's just create new and different stuff. So I don't get too really worried about that.
About like the super long in perpetuity.
Yeah, I'm a guy that's always trying to create something new and different. So, I don't.
But what always I find weird about those conversations is that, to me, they're not about, well, that person should own it or not own it. It's, is the world going to be better by somebody doing their cheaper version of a Harry Potter book, right? Like, it's who's gonna, like, that's what I'm very, 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 bullish on fair use, but I'm very restrictive on copyright, because I think you should be able to do something if it is within fair use, then yeah, do it. But I mean, if you're looking to build a company based on reprinting Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, then I'm like, all right, well, who are we really fighting for there? Right?
Well, and I'll tell you the thing too is, like, I can give you examples of who makes the most money with doing reprinting public domain works, and that's Barnes and Noble. That's the major publishers, and that's who would benefit the most. And like, I've heard people like, let's be anti-corporate, already it's copyright. It's like, no, they're going to come out ahead.
And even if we take specifically the term lengths out of the conversation, things like fair use, like you mentioned, are still really vague. And like, even in YouTube's system, they kind of have, like, they can make fair use considerations after a first appeal or something. Like even fair use is just nebulous. And
that's, I guess that's my point, is I would rather work on ways to secure that than to say that the solution is that everything should be, free for everybody.
The fair use thing, I think, but some of the stuff that's got the most attention to me, in my opinion, have been clearly egregious. You take the Star Wars fan film thing that they were making, that they raised money on. They raised over $1 million to make. I forget what it's called, right? That was a for-profit venture, clearly a for-profit venture. And they're saying, like, no, the movie's not going to make a profit. You're basically, they were building a studio. They're using it to fund a studio. They were selling it. People were paying for access to a product, using the name, using the IP to build this thing, to do this stuff. And so they raised $1 million worth of funding, and they were going to walk away from it with assets and things like that made off of the Star Trek IP. And you get like, well, what's the difference between that and a fan film? It's like, there's a gray area. There's areas where it can be like, hey, I made this fan film with me, a Star Trek thing, and I got a job from that, or whatever, or I paid a caterer to go cater people for it, so somebody made money for that. But That was and that's why CBS finally came out and was like, or the Paramount came out and said, hey, listen, here's the deal. Fan films can't be longer than 12 minutes. These are got to be the things here, here, and here. But, you know, when you had a production company which was raising $1 million of funding, hiring original Star Trek actors, calling it a Star Trek film.
Yeah, this is Star Trek, by the way, not Star Wars.
Did I say Star Wars?
Yeah, I think you mentioned Star Wars at first.
Yeah, Star Trek. Yeah, no. Anyhow, so Star Trek Axanar. So, you know, here's this big thing that, you know, that they've been going back and forth. And, you know, at first they said they were going to like settle the lawsuit, but then the lawsuit didn't go away. And there's been very torturous sorts of things. And people are like, well, it's going to, you know, a lot of diehards are like, oh, well, it's, you know, let them do it. I'm like, well, whether or not it's better or whatever than what's being done in Trek is irrelevant. You know, it just comes down to like, you know, where do you draw the line? And for me, it's like, that was pretty clear that they crossed that line.
Yeah. Or even, you know, going back to the original question of the prompt, being able to create systems that can plug into things like YouTube and SoundCloud that can give people better access to appealing things and figuring out fair use, you know.
Yeah, I think it should be stiff penalties for like this. When I got multiple complaints from one company on YouTube that all of them got rejected, I don't know that they were punished. I don't know that there was really.
They probably weren't. Yeah.
Yeah, there was no slapback for a bunch of things that immediately got reversed because it's all a big metadata thing. And ultimately, YouTube, as is the same with Google, is in the business of trying to reduce the amount that they need to talk to people. And so they need to talk to rights holders because they are the ones that can sue them. They don't want to talk to creators who get stepped on for it because they're by and large not going to be the ones that are going to make them a ton of money. And they just want to reduce, they literally just want to reduce volume of conversation. And I think that's part of the reason why that system can oftentimes be so frustrating to anybody but a rights holder.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, they have a machine to stop people from doing stuff, which at times, I mean, is useful. If someone's just, you know, freebooting your stuff.
I mean, it's certainly the most sophisticated machine out there for handling that stuff. And I think there are legitimate uses for it.
Well, but the problem is that machine is accessible to a certain people. I cannot.
Oh, yeah.
I've had the amount of problem I've had trying to get my magic videos off of YouTube, and repeatedly having stuff uploaded there without my permission and making claims to this. It was just a losing battle. I have no idea what ended up being up there because it was just. And all the hoops that I had to go to, and like, no, this thing is here. It's these keywords, my name, this thing. It'd be very, very easy. I didn't have access to those tools because they could give a damn about me, you know. And that's one of these things that, you know, why I don't love some companies and stuff is when it becomes so depersonalizing and they treat you in that way, and you realize, no, you have your first tier people and you have your second tier people, and that was problematic because the problem I would deal with is like, oh, what do you care? It's publicity. No, because I would have somebody pay $20 for a video and then they'd write me angrily because they see it on YouTube and they thought that I screwed them over or whatever. They're like, why aren't you keeping this off of there? You know, why am I paying you if I can get it for free?
Yeah.
What? Well, because it's moral, you know, but you know, and that was a frustrating thing for me was that it wasn't like I was sitting there going, I'm losing all this thing to piracy. I'm like, no, the people who bought it felt cheated. So there. So yes. And here we go. So there we go. Those are suggestions. And that's then after. Or do we have any picks? What do you want to do?
Yeah, we can do
picks.
Yeah.
You got a pick?
Me? Do I have a pick? Yeah. I gotta go first now with every single pick. All right, I'll give you a pick.
But I mean, I don't know.
I can go. I'll go.
Go.
Yeah, okay. Earlier, I want to say last week or so, I beat a new video entertainment game that came out pretty recently, and it's weird. My relationship to video games, I feel like, has changed a lot in the past 12 months. Probably over a year ago, I would say I was like really like into video games. Period. Like I would check out stuff and really get into, I don't know, core themes and ideas and more games for gamers. How's that? How's that's a good word for it? But over time, as I've gotten busier and as I work more on my computer at home, and so that makes playing games at home weird, I find that I really am more interested in kind of easier or less involved games. And sometimes that's, you know, games that just don't try to have a lot of things going on and things like clicker games on my phone. Just like that's a good way to spend some time. But I think in totality, this game really gave me a lot of good things for as watery as it is, and that game is Watch Dogs 2. This came from Ubisoft, and you play a hacker. You play a hacker in San Francisco, and you are trying to stop the big corporations. And that's basically all you need to know, because so much of that game is fluff. The story is fine, and it's funny, and the characters have personality, and it's colorful, all of which you couldn't have said about the first game. But also the actual gameplay, the actual tactile element of exploring the world and playing with these your RC drones and your little jumper machine. Like, it's actually just a fun thing to play. Like, it's kind of weird to be able to talk about it in such crass terms, but like the story, you could give a damn. Like there's some real bad things about the story, but it's also you could play this whole game and just skip all of the story, just skip all of it, and you would still like have a pretty good tactile thing. This is not the most glowing review, I believe, of this game, but for 30 hours, the world is nice, and there's a lot of good design things going on, and a lot of open ways to approach these different missions. I think almost every single mission, I never really needed to kill anybody or even put myself in harm's danger because of the drone and helicopter sort of options that the game gives you. It's funky and it's fresh.
Funky and fresh?
It's funky and fresh.
It's kind of like Mr. Robot the game.
It's like if Mr. Robot... You remember that scene in Mr. Robot where he gets really high and he's really happy? It's like if that was a game.
And that game was Grand Theft Auto.
Right. It's fine. It's a fun game,
I mean, it seems like it got the reputation for being the game that the first game should have been, which kind of goes into these like larger questions about like, are these games just getting released? Like is the first chapter always going to blow so the DLC can be good or the sequel can be good? But it certainly feels like it's fulfilled some of that promise.
Yeah, and it's in a weird place with Ubisoft, the publisher, because Ubisoft has said, hey, we kind of want to start making games that don't really have stories and are just experiences for you. They dropped this snowboarding game a week or two ago that has no story or campaign mode and really doesn't have a lot of levels. Like it's a big focus on it is user created content, and for them it's easy because you can just make a mountain and all the ways to traverse it and have people make the levels. So
they want Minecraft.
Yeah, they want to make Minecrafts.
Yeah, they want to make a thing that they own that everybody else gets hooked inside of.
Yeah, and I think Watch Dogs is kind of a half step in that direction, in that the story is pretty much unnecessary. It's good if you like the style of humor, which I think it has a lot of, and if you like the characters, who almost all are really good and well characterized, except for one incredibly specific and negative instance that brings to light a lot of the questions that the first game had with racial relations. In any case, Watch Dogs 2 is a video game you can play.
It certainly is.
Justin.
So in the spirit of After Things, which is a lot about, kind of going behind the scenes, I will say this. What you are looking at right now, you might think, oh, Justin, this is the exact same shot that you've had.
And this is a podcast too, but yeah, please tell me what I'm looking at.
Well,
it does look pretty much identical.
If you are listening, then nothing has changed. However, if you are watching on any of the non-controversial places that we're streaming, you might say it looks very similar to the same shot that I've always had. However, it is different because I just installed these two interfit boom mounting things that they have in Austin that they have their cameras mounted on, and they have immediately just kind of been a revelation for us. We have a very, very small area and we gotta maximize our space and especially floor space. And considering that I am simultaneously here in this studio, and then Ashley has to take the camera into the kitchen to do her streaming. It was just yet another kind of daily thing that we had to do to keep going. And I'm very, very happy. They were easy to install and immediately just kind of makes our lives a lot easier. So I'm very, very, very happy that we made the jump to get it.
Yeah, these are great. I love them here in the studio. It saves a lot of floor space when space is a premium. It allows us to have a bigger table because we don't need to dedicate ground space to a tripod, which is kind of a pyramidal shape. And also it means that we can have these set up and they'll basically be where they need to be. Like they don't get moved as much as a tripod. So there's no repositioning every time. It's great. It's great.
Yeah. No, it's been kind of a game changer so far, and we've only literally had them up for like 12 hours. So very, very, very excited to actually have these up, and I'm not tripping on them because they've been lying around my floor for like 2 months, but we've been like on the road so much that we haven't really had like a free kind of like day to get stuff done, and we finally did, and I'm glad that they're up.
There's interesting stuff that's going on in the space of camera stuff. I saw some new software that takes one static image of a person and can convert it into a 3D image. And thinking about this relates to my pick in a second of like where we're going with cameras and the idea of cameras, like using multiple cameras or cameras to create a virtual view of where you are. And I'm wondering how far off are we from, you just put a couple cameras around anywhere you want. They're going to capture enough of the scene and have enough data there to sort of let you switch to whatever point of view you want, even if it doesn't have a real example of that. So Bryce, who is amazingly fast at this, has already clicked into a video which shows them like a way to like from software like create a 3D model of a squirrel. But we're getting to the point where artificial intelligence is sophisticated enough to know what a face is and a nose is and to figure out from the shadows, et cetera, how to do that. So my pick is, and I mentioned this before, is Cardboard Camera. It's an app for Android and iOS, and it's sort of like a normal panoramic sort of camera thing, and it records audio. But what makes it really cool is, one, when you put it into a headset, if you use a Google Gear or if you use one of the little stereoscopic viewers, you turn your head around. But it also captures 3D. Even though it uses one camera on your phone, it actually is able to create a 3D image from this because as you're panning it around, it's able to pick up depth cues, and the software is smart enough to be able to know, if an object's close or further away.
Wow.
Which is just that was sort of like, I was a surprise for me. I made a panoramic and I put it in a headset and I tilted around, and this lamp that was a few feet away from me jumped at me. I'm like, oh, that's cool. So free app, Google's Cardboard Camera.
That's impressive that it'll take it from a 2D image. A lot of these 3D cameras use two lenses or...
Yeah, but because you're moving it around. Mm-hmm. So as you're moving it around, that object, it's getting depth cues. So it's able to do a separation, and it's able to understand what's close and what's further away.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's the state of the processing that goes into that is insane. And you can share them with friends, et cetera, too. So that's my pick. We all good? We all happy?
Feel good.
And we're good.
It's been after.
Boo. Hey, good shows, guys.
Thank you, sir.
Sweet.
I may jump in and do a Periscope.
Fun. I'm gonna... Where's my save? I'm gonna hit the save buttons. Very, very cool. What do we call this? Oh, that's it. Thank you for joining us here on DiamondClub.tv or on Twitch. I would like to see how you guys feel about the chat thing we did today. You know where to find me. But we didn't talk about it before the stream started, but we actually are looking at a collation of both chats through the software. So, let us know. We're experimenting and we're testing stuff out.
Yeah.
Sending you an image right now.
Let's orderly and reasonably talk about it.
Where are you sending it? On Gmail?
Oh no, Justin. I just sent you an image of the thing. I mentioned the thing. Oh. I'm working on a magic trick that's like a magic board game. Like it's just
that's
like
cool.
you kind of everything gets predicted. Yeah.
Oh wow.
So
That's cool.
Dig it. Oh, it looks awesome.
it's kind of like
Very neat.
yeah.
Well, we're gonna shut off the stream.
Justin's comment was, well, it's got a.
Oh, what was it? You cut
You
out.
dropped out.
No, I know. I'm like, why is Bryce interrupting me? Yeah, Justin's like, well, it's got to look as good as Clue. I'm like, well, all right. So it's
Yeah.
been a lot of time in Photoshop. So
All right, guys. Well,
all right,
we'll see you next time.